Today my name is Kettle, and we're going to be discussing the elephant that is faceless automation today. It's a simple formula that boils down to do the thing but without a face cam and then layer some AI over it. And of course, there's no shortage of grifters trying to capitalize on teaching you how to do things the best or the right way. You know the type. Some amalgamation of used car salesman and hot air promotes a video because it'll never get clicked on otherwise, claiming that you can make tons of money off of YouTube. Just follow these 3 simple tricks. And then bam, just like that, you're down the rabbit hole, trying to leverage script writing platforms, subtitle animations, and maybe even getting together a little animated avatar. The fun stumbles pretty quick here because the actual act of editing videos can be handled by algorithms, but they're not quite where they need to be 100% hands-off while still being enjoyable for the viewer. Today we're going to be discussing the hot button topic of faceless automation channels, where they stumble, and where they've seen the biggest profit margin that avoids all of those pitfalls with police body cam channels. Admittedly, these things are a bit of a guilty pleasure for me, though I have some pretty complex feelings on the monetization of such content, especially when things veer into game over territory, exploitation, or issues of missing context reshaping public perception. Before we jump the gun on this one, bad choice of words there. We've got to look into how these pipelines are typically promoted. It's channels that claim you can get a ton of views, sometimes with free videos, and sometimes by linking you to paid courses. There's usually some sound advice somewhere in there, don't get me wrong, but it is an active representation of when in a gold rush, sell shovels. You might be wondering what those shovels look like, and it's a lot of what you'd expect. AI-generated scripts, thumbnails, voiceovers, subtitles, B-roll, and more. These things make the core of a lot of these automated channels and do a lot of the initial heavy lifting. And this first layer is what differentiates a bad actor from anybody else. Someone with good intentions will start with a blank slate and their tool of choice, or they'll introduce their own material into the mix. This tends to be the first layer where HITL, that's human in the loop, comes heavily into play, and that might just be supplementing one of the options we listed earlier with something human-generated. Alternatively, the HITL can come in the form of post-processing, where something generated gets altered after the fact to meet the standard for production. Or there is a secret final option where you can just use something handmade as a base, which might look like contributing your voice to an algorithm when you're sick to ensure that you can keep making things. The pitfall here is simple. While out-of-the-box tools promoted by these folks for faceless automation are useful, there'll be some extra steps needed for the actual video editing and production side of things. Relying purely on video generation to supplement HITL isn't currently at a point where it can provide the quality needed to begin blurring the lines of slop hell while achieving monetization. We are working on getting there though, don't get me wrong. Once we've established a script and audio, other layers of automation come into play for the faceless tuber. And I'm gonna take a second to be transparent here. This layer is what we use here on this channel. While our scripts are now made entirely by goblins, and our audio always has been, this second layer has let us make the job of the editors specifically a little bit easier by eliminating some of the most tedious pieces of work. Like subtitles, for instance. We can translate audio with Whisper and then use custom pipelines or tools available on the web to go ahead and animate them. We can even do something similar with the avatar, where a set of PNG images are selected from at the start of each new sentence, and each new avatar state is appropriate to the emotion of that given sentence. Not terribly complex, but companies have been quick to monetize this middle layer, which can also include things like slide decks, censoring curse words, B-roll sourcing, and a bunch of other stuff that we haven't touched on in this video. I am not big on paying organizations to automate things that I can create local tools for, and hopefully you aren't either. This middle layer of faceless automation is very rule-based and doesn't tend to change a lot, and in the edge cases where those rules are broken, the editor can step in and make alterations by hand. Like those automated avatar animations, when they mix up emotions, an editor can easily come in and then just change the frame. For video production, this means more time spent on animation and being able to fulfill more projects at a quicker rate. Let's address this dude right here. We've been speaking pretty altruistically about how these tools are used, and that's not always how they're applied in real life. Enter the bad actor. They'll mix these layers, typically with hyper-specific plagiarized content, in order to replicate much of the feel of whatever genuine creator they're tossing into the mix. This can be as simple as taking the script from a YouTube video and feeding it through a system that rewrites it paragraph by paragraph, but just a little bit different. And it doesn't stop there. These days, high-fidelity outputs with image generators mean channels can replicate everything down to the general vibes of assets and avatars. An approach like this is typically all done to capitalize on a large user base, not to siphon them away from the original creator, but to grow by proxy and minimal effort. Okie dokie, now we get to get into the fun stuff. In general, how faceless automation works, and you've probably already caught on to the fact that morality and faceless automation is also all over the place, especially when you start profiting off of the mental breakdowns of the general public who need medical attention more than police intervention. Putting that aside, faceless automation complicates the ethical nature even further. Someone making an algorithm that animates your avatars is not really that big of a deal. Things do get a little bit murky when you start talking about high-fidelity replication. And that's where the most profitable angle in faceless automation comes into play to avoid most of these problems. To clarify though, it's not like these channels didn't exist before AI, they did. AI has simply made them more prolific and more specific. We've seen some shifting in how these channels operate over the years, and that revolves generally around the concept of transformative content. It's not usually enough to just upload raw footage anymore, so these channels might automate their subtitles, offer a voiceover at the start or end that details the charges, give it a watermark, and stamp it as educational. Occasionally, bodycam channels will even hire out a real individual. Sometimes they're related to law enforcement, and woo! They can now claim that they've transformed the video footage. Which is all well and good. This pipeline is simple, it's replicatable, and most importantly, it takes minimal effort. Didn't we talk about you already? Fine, let's talk about how automation plays a big role in acquiring footage here, because it's actually the most time-consuming part of this process and what makes things so profitable. The pipeline itself is pretty simple. Find a case or complaint number, file a FOIA request, and wait to see if the accompanying footage gets turned over. I am dumbing it down, yes, because depending on where you're at, the request can be a little bit more involved, which is why many bodycam channels now focus on a specific jurisdiction. But just for shits and gigs, let's go ahead and walk through one quick example. We'll just search Google for DC Superior Court Case Search, and when we find the official page, it'll instruct us how to view criminal dockets. From there, we look through the listings to find something that'd be of viewer interest. If the docket or attached document gives us usable incident details, date, time, location, and ideally a central complaint number, we've usually got enough to frame the request. Because in this case, the local department, MPD, they specifically ask for those detail in FOIA submissions. It's at this point that we write a polite message to the email that the website provided us with our FOIA request, although MPD does say that the quickest way to submit and track things is through their public FOIA portal. In DC, there's no initial filing fee, but agencies may charge for search, reviews, or reproduction of materials. Then all that's left to do is wait and see whether or not the footage is turned over to you. All we've got to do is rinse and repeat this same practice a few hundred times, and eventually there'll be enough footage that have been returned from our FOIA request to prop up a bodycam channel. The only caveat here being that some places have residency requirements, so there is a good amount of initial research that goes into setting up these pipelines in a way that makes them functional. Automation here writes itself. Crawl the web page, rank content based on likely availability of bodycam footage and how salacious it might be from the report. Then the pipeline can simply fire off a number of automated copy and paste emails, not in the out of the box, here's a website to do all of that for you kind of way, but in the a solid few days of vibe coding will tank the bulk of your work into a weekly button press kind of way. There are a lot of upsides here for these channels with very few pitfalls. These channels typically get the lion's share of their views in just the first few days, so if somebody were to come along and say, I don't like being in this video, take it down, not only would that channel not be immediately obligated to do so, but they've already made the majority of what they would have otherwise. At the end of it, even if a formal complaint via the native reporting system or a lawyer were to get involved, it's a small fraction from what ends up being hundreds of uploads. Typically this is once a day, though occasionally you will find some channels posting more often. This enables these channels to climb fast in the algorithm, and when they eventually curate their 3 strikes due to pushing some boundary or guideline, you can just start the cycle over again. And that's only if these people ever find out about it. Investments into pipelines can be as little as a bit of our time, and video editing can be reduced into literally a couple of button clicks. Rapid-fire uploads, multiple channels, and the algorithm, that all does the rest. I wish I could say that there was some secret sauce here, but there really isn't. In the future, we might explore more examples of where people are genuinely making a profit from automated pipelines. Because one of the most interesting through lines in them is that rarely do they exist in a space where people are levying pitchforks and torches at their computer. The target audience for this is almost never aware, and if they aren't aware of how much of this is generally done by AI. And that layer of transparency tends to be the make or break, I find, for a lot of individuals as to whether or not they are okay with AI, if they're okay with AI in general. I don't know if this is making sense anymore. Okay. On that note, I think that's gonna be it from me. Remember, next time you're in a gold rush, learn how to make some shovels, but maybe the less dubious kind of shovel or something. Until then, see you nerds!